In a world where most celebrities put fame before fans, one boxing legend proved that some heroes don't just wear capes, they wear boxing gloves. The crowd of 18,000 fans at Madison Square Garden had no idea they were about to witness something far more powerful than a knockout. They came for a fight, but left with tears streaming down their faces and a story they'd never forget. What Manny Pacquiao did that night for a little boy named Tyler wasn't just unexpected, it was absolutely unbelievable. If you've ever wondered if there are still good people in this world, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories that'll restore your faith in humanity. And leave a comment telling us what you would have done if you were in Manny's boxing shoes that night. Now, let's dive into this remarkable story that changed lives forever. It all started 3 weeks before the big fight, when Pacquiao received a letter from Tyler's mother, Sarah. Her handwriting was shaky, the paper stained with tears that had dried but left their mark, just like her words would leave on Manny's heart. Tyler had been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and doctors had given him just months to live. The 7-year-old boy had one dream before his time ran out: to meet his hero, the only fighter who'd made him smile through his painful treatments. Sarah didn't expect a response. Celebrities receive thousands of fan letters every day. She simply hoped that somehow, her words might reach beyond the handlers and publicists that usually shield stars from these heartbreaking requests. She couldn't have known that Pacquiao personally read selected fan mail every Friday, a ritual he'd maintained since his early fighting days in the Philippines. When Manny unfolded the letter and began reading about Tyler, something shifted inside him. His training team noticed the change immediately, the way his shoulders dropped, how his eyes glistened with tears. He tried to blink away. "This one's different," he told his manager, who was already shaking his head, preparing the usual gentle rejection. The upcoming fight was too important, the schedule too tight, the security concerns too great. But Manny wasn't asking for permission. He was simply informing his team of what would happen next. He picked up his phone and called Sarah himself, bypassing the usual channels. When she answered, confused by the international number, and heard his distinctive accent, she dropped to her knees in shock. "I want to meet Tyler," Manny said simply, "not after the fight." During it, his plan wasn't just to meet the boy, it was to give him a moment that would outshine even the darkest shadows of his illness. What Manny proposed was unprecedented in professional boxing history. He wanted to pause his multi-million-dollar championship fight, not during a scheduled break, but in the middle of a round, to bring Tyler into the ring. His promoters were livid. Television executives threatened to sue, and the Boxing Commission initially refused even to discuss such an unorthodox request. "This violates every protocol we have," the commissioner explained during an emergency meeting, but Pacquiao remained unmoved. "Then change the protocols," he said quietly. "Some things matter more than rules." He was willing to risk fines, penalties, even his title shot for a child he'd never met. His opponent, initially suspicious that this was some kind of psychological warfare, eventually agreed after meeting Tyler during a pre-fight hospital visit. Together, the two fighters approached the commission again, presenting a united front that was impossible to ignore. The night of the fight arrived, and Madison Square Garden hummed with energy as fans filled every seat. Few knew about the special arrangement that had been made, only a small circle of officials, the medical team standing by, and Tyler's family, who waited nervously in a private room below the arena. Tyler, weak but determined, wore a custom-sized Pacquiao robe that the fighter had sent to the hospital the week before. His mother tried to prepare him for disappointment, worried that in the heat of competition, the plan might fall apart. "Even if it doesn't happen exactly like they said, Manny still cares about you," she told him, smoothing his thinning hair. Tyler just smiled, with that unshakable faith that children somehow maintain even when adults have lost theirs. "He promised," the boy said simply, "and Mom, fighters keep their promises." As the third round began, Pacquiao fought with his usual intensity, but those close to him noticed how his eyes occasionally darted toward the official timekeeper. At exactly 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the round, something remarkable happened. In the middle of an exchange, Pacquiao stepped back and lowered his gloves. His opponent, remembering their agreement, did the same. The referee, initially confused, started to step between them before realizing what was happening. The crowd fell silent, confusion spreading through the arena like a wave. Pacquiao walked to the ropes and beckoned toward the tunnel entrance. The television cameras followed his gesture, and suddenly, on the giant screens around the arena, everyone saw Tyler being carried toward the ring by his father. The boy's fragile frame and bald head told a story that needed no explanation. The crowd's confusion transformed into understanding, and then something more, a collective opening of hearts that you could almost feel physically in the arena. Tyler was helped through the ropes, his small body dwarfed by the vastness of the professional boxing ring. Pacquiao immediately went down on one knee, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. What he said to Tyler wasn't picked up by the microphones, but those closest saw the fighter remove his glove and place something in the child's hand. later revealed to be a small medallion of St. Michael that Pacquiao had carried through every professional fight of his career. "This protected me," he told Tyler. "Now it will protect you." The boy's face, pale from months of aggressive treatments, lit up with a smile that seemed to radiate through the entire arena. No knockout punch could have created the emotion that surged through Madison Square Garden at that moment. What happened next left even the hardened boxing commentators struggling to maintain their composure. Pacquiao's opponent, rather than standing back, approached and knelt beside them. He removed his mouthguard and spoke to Tyler too, offering his own words of encouragement. Then, both fighters, representing different countries, speaking different languages, united by something far greater than their sport, each kissed the boy on the forehead. The crowd, initially silent in shock, erupted into applause that built into a roar unlike anything ever heard in that famous arena. It wasn't the usual bloodthirsty cheering for violence. It was something purer, a celebration of humanity that transcended competition. Hardened fight fans were openly weeping. Even the referee discreetly wiped his eyes before signaling for the fighters to continue once Tyler had been carefully escorted back to his family. The rest of the match continued, but everyone in the arena knew they'd witnessed something far more significant than whoever would win the official decision. The fight itself almost seemed like an afterthought, though both boxers fought with renewed passion, as if energized by the moment of compassion they'd shared. When the final bell rang, the two men embraced longer than customary, bonded by an experience that few would ever understand. The winner was announced, hands were raised, but in post-fight interviews, neither athlete spoke about their performance. They spoke only about Tyler, about courage that makes even the bravest fighter humble, about how some victories happen outside the ring. The sports networks, which had initially been furious about the unauthorized break, found themselves with footage that would be replayed millions of times around the world. What few people knew was that the brief moment in the ring was just the beginning of Pacquiao's commitment to Tyler. The following morning, while most fighters would be recovering or celebrating, Manny appeared at the hospital where Tyler had been readmitted due to complications from his condition. No cameras, no entourage, just Manny, still bearing the marks of the previous night's battle, sitting beside the boy's bed for hours. He brought the championship belt, letting Tyler hold it and take pictures. The nurses were sworn to secrecy, but one couldn't help sharing the story of how the world champion sat reading adventure stories to the sick child until he fell asleep. "I've worked in pediatric oncology for 15 years, she later told a reporter who discovered the visit. "I've seen celebrities visit for photo ops. This was different." Manny didn't leave when Tyler dozed off. He just kept holding his hand, sometimes praying quietly, sometimes just watching over him. The relationship between the fighter and the boy deepened in the weeks that followed. Pacquiao arranged for Tyler to receive experimental treatment at a specialized facility, using his connections and resources to open doors that had previously been closed to the family. Medical experts were flown in from around the world for consultations. When asked about these expenses in an interview, Pacquiao brushed off the question. "How do you put a price on hope?" He said simply. The media attention brought an unexpected wave of support. Other athletes, celebrities, and thousands of ordinary people contributed to a fund for Tyler's treatment. Cards and gifts arrived daily at the hospital, transforming the boys' room into something resembling a small toy store. Through it all, Manny called every day, sometimes just to tell a joke or share a story from his training. Against all medical expectations, Tyler began to respond to the new treatments. His doctors were cautious, warning against too much optimism, but the scans showed unmistakable improvement. The tumors were shrinking. Tyler's energy returned in small bursts, enough for him to sit up in bed and talk excitedly about his daily calls with the champion. Sarah noticed something else changing to the medical staff's attitude. Where there had been gentle pity, there was now curious hope. "It's not just the treatment," one doctor confided to her. "Sometimes the will to live is as powerful as any medicine we can administer." And Tyler's will to live had found new strength in his friendship with Manny. The boy who had been preparing to die was now making plans for the future. Simple childhood dreams, like learning to throw a proper punch, visiting Pacquiao's training camp, maybe even traveling to the Philippines someday. 6 months after that unforgettable night at Madison Square Garden, Tyler walked into Pacquiao's gym in Los Angeles on his own 2 feet. His hair had begun to grow back, a soft fuzz covering the surgical scars that told of his ongoing battle. The fighter stopped his workout immediately, rushing across the gym to embrace the small boy who had become like family. The gym fell silent as tough, battle-hardened boxers watched their champion lift Tyler onto his shoulders and parade him around the ring like the true victor he was. "This is my friend," Pacquiao announced to everyone present. "He fights harder than all of us." The trainers and sparring partners lined up to meet the young boy, treating him with the respect usually reserved for champion fighters. Tyler beamed with pride, his illness momentarily forgotten as he was welcomed into this brotherhood of warriors. What made this story even more remarkable was how Pacquiao insisted on keeping much of his support private. While the initial ring, the moment had been very public. His subsequent financial assistance, daily calls, and hospital visits were conducted away from cameras. It was Tyler's mother who eventually shared these details. Feeling the world needed to know the full extent of Manny's generosity, he never wanted credit, she explained in a television interview that went viral. When reporters asked, he would change the subject or simply say that anyone would do the same. But that's not true. Not everyone would give so much of themselves to a stranger's child. She revealed how Pacquiao had paid not just for medical treatments but also for their family's living expenses, ensuring that Sarah could take leave from work to be with her son full-time during his treatment. When their landlord had threatened eviction due to missed rent payments, they suddenly received notice that their entire lease had been paid through the next year. The medical community took notice of Tyler's case, not just because of the celebrity involvement, but because his recovery defied statistical probabilities. His type of brain tumor had a devastatingly low survival rate. Yet here he was, defying the odds. Researchers began studying his case more closely, wondering if the combination of cutting-edge treatment and extraordinary psychological support might offer insights for other patients. Medical journals published papers referencing what some doctors had begun calling the Pacquiao effect, the impact of hope, purpose, and emotional connection on physical healing. While scientists were careful not to oversimplify the complex interplay between mind and body in cancer treatment, Tyler's case opened new conversations about holistic approaches to pediatric oncology. On the one-year anniversary of their meeting, Pacquiao organized a special event at a children's hospital in Tyler's hometown. What was supposed to be a small gathering transformed into something much larger as word spread through the community. Hundreds of people showed up, cancer patients and their families, boxing fans, and citizens simply touched by the story. Manny arrived without fanfare, slipping in through a back entrance to avoid making the event about himself rather than the children. He brought with him several other professional fighters, each one assigned to spend time with specific young patients. For hours, these tough men, known for their power in the ring, sat coloring, playing video games, and telling stories with children battling life-threatening illnesses. Hospital staff observed that patients who had been withdrawn or depressed were suddenly animated, finding strength they didn't know they had. Tyler stood beside Pacquiao during a brief speech, no longer the fragile child from a year before. Though still undergoing treatment, his prognosis had improved dramatically. Sometimes, the toughest fights don't happen in the ring, Manny told the gathered families, his arm around Tyler's shoulder. They happen in hospital rooms, in quiet moments when no one is watching and you have to decide whether to keep fighting or give up. This young man taught me what real courage looks like. He announced the establishment of a foundation in Tyler's name, dedicated to connecting young cancer patients with athletes and celebrities for mentorship and emotional support. The foundation would also fund research into the kinds of innovative treatments that had helped Tyler, hoping to make them more widely available to families without financial resources. Sarah watched from the side, tears streaming down her face, remembering how she'd felt when she first wrote that desperate letter. The impact of Pacquiao's actions extended far beyond one child's life. Other athletes, inspired by his example, began reaching out to hospitals in their cities, establishing similar programs. The Boxing Commission, initially so resistant to breaking protocol during the fight, worked with Pacquiao to establish new guidelines for special circumstances, ensuring that compassionate exceptions could be made without compromising fighter safety. Television networks, which had threatened legal action over the interrupted broadcast, now proudly included the Madison Square Garden moment in promotional materials, recognizing that such authentic human connection was more valuable than any scripted drama. What had begun as one fighter's impulsive act of kindness had sparked a movement within professional sports, challenging athletes to use their platform and resources for something more meaningful than endorsement deals. Tyler's story continued to evolve in ways no one could have predicted. By his 8th birthday, scans showed no evidence of the tumors that had once threatened his life. His doctors used words like remission and even miracle, though they were quick to credit the advanced medical protocols as well as the boy's extraordinary will to live. Tyler and his mother were invited to speak at medical conferences, sharing their experience with healthcare providers, seeking to better understand the psychological components of healing. Sarah, once a shy woman, overwhelmed by her son's diagnosis, discovered a powerful voice as an advocate for families facing pediatric cancer. She established support groups in hospitals across the country, teaching parents how to advocate effectively for their children within complex healthcare systems. The desperate mother who had once written a letter with no expectation of reply was now helping others find their own path through impossible situations. For Manny Pacquiao, the relationship with Tyler became one of the most meaningful connections of his illustrious career. Long after retirement, when asked about his greatest achievements, he would mention this friendship before any championship belt, the Medal of St. Michael that he'd given. Tyler in the ring became something of a shared custody arrangement. Tyler would wear it during his medical checkups, then send it back to Manny before important events in the fighter's life. It traveled between them as a physical reminder of their bond, a small object imbued with immense significance. When Pacquiao faced personal challenges or professional setbacks, he would often call Tyler, drawing strength from the boy who had taught him what true resilience looked like. Their roles as mentor and student had evolved into something more balanced, each teaching the other about different kinds of courage. The story of Manny Pacquiao and Tyler Jefferson might have remained a touching but isolated incident, remembered primarily by those who witnessed it firsthand, if not for what happened 5 years later at the International Sports Awards. Pacquiao, now retired from boxing and involved in humanitarian work, was being honored for his lifetime achievement. As he took the stage to accept the award, he surprised everyone by inviting Tyler, now a healthy 12-year-old, to join him. The audience, recognizing the boy from the famous footage, erupted in applause. Standing beside his young friend, Manny spoke about how easy it is for celebrities to become disconnected from the real impact they can have in people's lives. "We train to fight opponents in the ring," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But the real opponents in this world are things like disease, poverty, and indifference. Those require a different kind of strength." What Manny did next left the audience stunned. He handed his Lifetime Achievement Award to Tyler, saying, "This belongs to you. You fought the harder battle." The boy, taller now but still dwarfed by the stage and the occasion, accepted the trophy with visible emotion. When handed the microphone, Tyler spoke with a poise that belied his young age. "5 years ago, I was dying," he said simply. "I'm standing here today because one person decided I was worth fighting for." He described how Pacquiao's intervention had not only brought him cutting-edge medical care, but something perhaps even more powerful, a reason to keep fighting when his small body wanted to surrender. The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes, celebrities and sports legends rising to their feet in recognition of something that transcended fame and achievement. The simple, profound impact of one human being choosing to care about another. The ceremony was broadcast globally, and within days, hospitals around the world reported a surge in athlete visits and celebrity engagement. The Pacquiao effect, as it came to be known in charitable circles, demonstrated how authentic, personal connection could inspire far more giving than any formal fundraising campaign. Medical foundations saw unprecedented donation levels, particularly for pediatric cancer research. Perhaps most remarkably, everyday people began reaching out to families in their communities facing similar battles, offering support that didn't require fame or fortune, just the willingness to show up and be present through someone else's darkest hours. The ripple effect continued expanding, touching lives far removed from that boxing ring in Madison Square Garden, proving that sometimes the most powerful acts are those done without calculation or expectation of return. Today, Tyler Jefferson is studying medicine at Johns Hopkins University, specializing in pediatric oncology, determined to become the kind of doctor who had saved his life. His personal experience as a patient gives him unique insight and empathy that his professors say cannot be taught in any medical school. Manny Pacquiao continues his humanitarian work, having established hospitals in underserved regions of the Philippines and around the world. The foundation they created together has helped thousands of children access experimental treatments and emotional support during their cancer battles. But beyond these tangible achievements lies something less measurable but perhaps more significant, a reminder that in a world often fixated on celebrity, wealth, and power, the most meaningful impact we can have is often person to person, heart to heart, one act of compassion at a time. When asked by journalists about the moment that changed everything, Tyler always shares the same memory, looking up at the bright lights of Madison Square Garden, feeling the canvas under his feet, and seeing not a world-famous boxer but simply a man who cared enough to stop everything for him. "I was 7 years old and had accepted I was going to die," he explains. "In that moment, someone I'd only seen on television made me feel like I mattered more than any championship, more than any record, more than any paycheck. That's when I decided I wasn't ready to give up." Pacquiao, for his part, insists that he received far more than he gave. "People call me a champion because I won fights," he often says, "but Tyler showed me what it really means to be undefeated." Their story continues to inspire, not because it's about a celebrity's good deed, but because it reminds us of a simple truth we sometimes forget. The most powerful thing any of us can offer another human being is the decision to stop, to see them, and to say with our actions that they matter.